It's me again! And hooray! The S1 is finally out. The S1 was released this morning, July 15th, 2022, in the pre-market hours of 7:30 a.m. Central Time, which, if you're an East Coast person, that's 8:30 a.m., but for me it was 7:30 a.m. And the S1 is a big, long document. It reads a lot like a proxy statement, but some questions are answered, and then John Berta gave additional addendum information on Twitter, and we're going to go over that today. Because a lot of people are confused about what is AST. Why does he say register your shares with AST? We're going to talk about that. It's not to entrap you, okay? There's a lot of... I guess we'll talk about that first. So there's a lot of stipulation that with a private company, that NextBridge will be at first. It'll be a private company until either sale of the asset or, whatever the management team decides. But at first, it will be a private company with no ability to essentially trade those shares, either in an exchange or a market like the OTC. And the language for it not being registered with the DTC as such is stated on the S1. So, does that mean you're going to be trapped? Not necessarily. You won't be trapped if you have a direct register shares, because then you could sell them via a bespoken way. If you transfer your shares over to the register agent of those shares, which, by the way, is American Stock Transfer and Trust Company, LLC. So the advice John Berta gave is, if you want to go long in NextBridge, to definitely register your shares. One, it gives a more effective way of communication with being a private company with NextBridge and its holders. Two, some brokerages don't allow you to keep a private company, so this will help further that if you wish to hold NextBridge. Three, it makes the broker go and get those shares in the event that your brokerage actually doesn't have the shares. It makes them go get the shares. So it assures you that, yes, your share is genuine and going into this private company. Also, if you wish to exit your position, you might be able to do so, because you can do a bespoken sale with the transfer agent with whoever needs the shares. You can't do it on a market or an exchange, any type of electronic. It's going to be a bespoke sale, meaning somebody has to physically call AST, and then they're like, well, let's see who has shares for sale. And not everybody's brokerage handles private companies. We have a couple of weeks. So the S1 is not effective yet. It's filed, but the SEC hasn't approved. That's why you're going to see all these blank spaces that say such and such date 2022. Because it's not ineffective yet. It's not approved. Once it's approved by SEC with no amendments to be made, that's your S1A, is an amendment or change or to placate the SEC. Once the SEC approves this S1, it will become effective immediately. So because we don't know that date yet, you can't really have a specific date. Needless to say, when it does become approved, you are going to see a PR with the new record date for the NextBridge shares when MMTLP goes bye-bye into NextBridge. So right now we're on step 3. Spin out. We're on step 3 now. Step 3 will commence with the effectiveness of the S1. That's when S1 becomes effective, and that's when you will be definitely given your date for MMTLP going bye-bye into NextBridge Hydrocarbons, which, by the way, is no ticker sign because it's private at first. With that being said, let's go to page 4. It says there's going to be a 1-to-1 distribution. There's 165 million outstanding MMTLP shares. There's going to be about 165 million outstanding NextBridge shares. with the possibility or the total authorized shares being up to 500 million. But for now, the outstanding shares is 165 million with the total authorized amount. That means how many can be authorized before you have to do splits and stuff, with 500 million. And that you can find on page 35 of this S1. I will put up graphs when I can. I'm just reading on my notes here, and then I'll go back to those pages and pull up the associated articles. That's how I roll. I do notes, and then in post I put the pictures up. That's how I organize my thoughts. Again, page 4 also shows the dates off blank for the record date. I would like to point out, notice how it says 2022. There was a lot of different groups of people saying, no, the record date was back in June 2021. Notice how it says 2022 on an official PR form filed with the SEC from Metamaterials. It says 2022 on it. It does not say June 2021. So it does say 2022. The exact date is unknown yet because we have to wait for the SEC to approve the S1, and that's when the S1 becomes effective. And you'll have that new PR with the new record date. Page 5. We get the specific language that the NextBridge hydrocarbon spinout will be a private company. Page 8, it talks about our equity, our securities. Okay. Page 9, it talks about the 2022 drill plan, which is 5 additional wells for 2022. Later on in the S1, it talks about how up until March, it was satisfied, which meant the 2021 drill plan, which was satisfied by March 2022, with that update. But for 2022 and 2023, you have 5 additional wells. Page 26 talks about the 1-to-1 conversion. 1 MMTLP or Series A preferred to 1 NextBridge share. The AST, American Stock Transfer and Trust LLC, being the registered agent. And this again is what John Berta said. If you want to do NextBridge, stay long into NextBridge, either for, some type of dividend, some type of sale with the oil assets. If you want to stay long in that company, this is what you should do, because then if you have to exit out, you can. You're not entrapped. Your money isn't just stuck there. Hey, it's my living room again. People have been asking, well, it says here in the S1 they might not be able to afford a dividend. That relates to the regular dividend with no oil being pumped. If it's a special dividend from a sale of an asset, that's different, and that does not pertain to this situation. Hope that clears things up for you. This dividend would be a regular dividend from oil sales, the distribution from that profit, not a distribution from the sale of the assets. There are, again, a lot of risks on this forum, but that's risks that, any possible risk. I've talked about the environmental studies and models used in papers and how they give risk assessments, and a lot of times one of those risk assessments is blown totally out of proportion, like with the cows and the methane. It's the same scenario. Page 35, again, we talk about the 165 million outstanding shares of MMTLP, matching a 1-to-1 with 165 million outstanding shares in NextBridge, but the total authorized shares is 500 million. Okay, page 39. You will look and you will see gross and net. I've talked about gross and net once before. I will erase this puppy stuff. I was trying to do a video earlier of things you need for a puppy. So we have in the Oro Grande a total of 134,000 acres, okay? Just about. But we're not the only company who has an interest in that. There McCabe Petroleum. Torchlight has a working interest of 66.5%. So that's 0.665. If you take 134,000 times 0.665, guess what you get? You get 89,100, which is our net. That's how you get your net total times your working interest. That's how you get net. So that's, again, I've taken that calculation to the dividend this whole time. Do not worry about that. That's been accounted for. We've accounted for that in the math. I've always been accounting for that in the math, so we're good to go. There might be FUD come up, but again, that's just for the uneducated and the people who haven't really done the math or put in the time for this, right? Okay, page 72 talks about American Stock Transfer, again, and Trust, LLC. Now we get into the appendices, the addendums. F13, it talks about the Oro Grande revenue and ownership. Again, you can see who owns what shares, what the revenue interest is on the Oro Grande. Like University Lands is 20%. Torchlight has 49.9%. You can go through and you can see who owns what as a refresher to you. And if you calculate the two methods I talked about, taking the revenue interest or, a minus of the royalties and times this, they work out to be within a few dollars of each other. So it's pretty similar, the two methods. Okay, F38. I'm going to talk about that because that relates to Meta. This is, remember, of course you do. You remember that offer Meta did, a couple of weeks ago, right? They did the $50 million offer. $5 million of that was going to go to the spin out. And to which point we're like, is it a loan? Is it free money? What's the deal here? It was not free money. It's an unsecured loan, term loan. NextBridge is taking it on themselves for $2.34 million of that $5 million at an interest rate of, listed here, I think it's 8%. I'll put it up. And they have up to $5 million to borrow. This $2.34 million is just to get the ball rolling. Again, the total is $5 million for this. This is basically operating fees right now. Again, that's the unsecured term loan, and it's to cover the operating costs of the assets for now. And that's the S1 in a nutshell. So, it's going to be private. It's going to have a 1-to-1 conversion. You get one MMTLP is one NextBridge or Oilco. One MMTLP is one NextBridge. It's a 1-to-1 conversion. That makes things easier. For us right now, that's the total outstanding shares. However, authorized total is 500 million. Do they have to authorize all 500 million? No, they don't, but it's there. In fact, they talk about it and the dilution, and they think like other alternative forms of financing would be more preferable to us owners of this private company. They do talk about that on page 8 of the S1. Do you sell into the run-up? Or do you want to go long on this? Or do you want to sell some shares into the run-up and some go long? This is where you make your plan right now. Take this time now, between now and X, dividend date when there's a run-up. Do you want to sell into the run-up? Do you want to go long? Do you want to sell some, have some go long? Think what you want to go long on this, and then start the transfer process into AST. As far as the oil and gas goes, as Seaplant, the trend is your friend, posted this earlier today. It talked about significant new findings in the Oro Grande. Could this be extra gas? Could this be extra oil? I hope we get some PR on this soon because, look, there's some extra findings in the Oro Grande. Would this be extra gas, extra oil? It's rather exciting, I think. And certainly exciting for the Oro Grande itself if there's new and extra hydrocarbons there. Again, as technology gets better. The wording in this particular paragraph leads me to believe that that lateral well was drilled. If they found something extra, they might have gone, with that lateral well. I'm not too sure. That's just my speculation at that point. So what's our next plan? What are we waiting for next? We're waiting for the SEC to say okay on this S1. It becomes effective. And then you're going to see the PR from Meta that says this is the new ex-dividend date. It's within this time that you make your plan what you want to go long in next bridge. Or maybe you just want to chance it and sell it all in the run-up. This is your point. This is the decision you must make. I hope this cleared up any confusion about why you need to register your shares. It's not that there's a concern about fake shares or that, the shares aren't real. It's because not every firm, brokerage, bank deals with private companies. And thus, you will have your say in the private company. They can communicate with you. Your bank won't go, I don't know what to do with this. It just makes confusion a lot easier. So it's a little bit of homework on your end. Again, come up with a plan. I see a run-up happening in MMTLP if there's going to be one after that press release. Because it's going to be, a private company, you are going to have to close out your positions going into that private company. I am very excited about the run-up going into next bridge. And again, as I stated before, I start my shares being sold at $75 and up. That's what I start my shares at. It's up to you what you want to do. That's your plan. Remember your training, have a plan. But I think there will be quite the demand once that PR comes out people who have open short positions must close out their positions going into this private company. It certainly will be more known by then. But like I said, next bridge starts private. The S1 was filed because there are shareholders involved. Okay, guys, that's it for today. I will see you soon. Goodbye.